Yo, what's up? Welcome inside the opening line. Corey and Benny coming at you. I don't have my fan right here. It's hot, but I'm not going to get up and go get it. What we got? This is Tuesday morning, time to get ready to hit the waiver wire, talk about some of that stuff, see if we got any movements on these lines, and also recap Monday Night Football. What's good with you, Benny? How was your evening?
Yeah, not too bad, man. I like the fact that we had two football games last night, but I'm a little tired this morning, Corey. That second game ended kind of late there, and really after the first game, my emotions were kind of up, man. That was an awesome football game last night.
Nah, that was a great game last night. I had the Texans plus the 6.5, so I was able to get away with that one. I also had DeAndre Hopkins to score a touchdown. So you know what I'm saying? We was able to get up on them last night. Benny also had the Raiders last night too. So it was a good night all around. But just great game, you know what I'm saying? Great sweat, I guess, if you want it. I guess really the only losers were probably the over people, the under people, and the people that was on the Saints.
Yeah, well, the under was actually looking pretty good there in the first half. I was getting a little worried with the over bet, so I was glad that the scoring picked up in the second half over there. I didn't bet the game last night. I didn't take either side of it. The only other bet I had was Kamara to score in this one, to be the first touchdown scorer, which I don't understand what they were doing at the beginning of the game. They had the ball down inside the 20. I think it ended in like an interception down there. Bad throw by Drew Brees. But, you know, you have Alvin Kamara on your team and you're messing around and, you know, trying to get the ball to Latavius Murray, which is fine between the 20s. But, you know, when you get inside the 20, like, you got to go with your horse, man. You got to go with the best player on your team. So I didn't understand the play calling there, but far be it for me to talk about Drew Brees and Sean Payton and their play calling. They've done this very well for years and years and years. But you know what? Every once in a while, somebody makes a mistake. To me, that was a mistake, and losing the game, you know, came back to bite them. That turnover where they didn't get any points there.
Jared Cook came out, had a pretty decent Jared Cook style game. Mm-hmm. If you were like, to me, he's invisible on the field, but I know you guys want to know about him. Kamara did his thing. He ran well, especially when he got going. Hopkins is a stud, is a beast. You know what I'm saying? Interesting, though, the running game, Duke Johnson put up decent numbers with his receptions. Carlos Hyde, though, looked very good running the football, Benny.
Yeah, he did.
You going to throw water on Carlos Hyde, Benny? I got Carlos Hyde stashed on so many benches. Come on, Benny, don't do that to me.
No, I don't want to throw water on it. Here's what I'll say is, to me, this is basically like a 50-50 split. It's kind of what we saw last night. It's reminiscent of what happened with them in Cleveland, right? Like, Carlos Hyde is going to handle the running on the early down work. Duke Johnson.
We're together in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Wow.
Duke Johnson is going to keep being the passing down guy. Of the two, I still think Duke Johnson's the better one to own, because they're going to – Hyde probably ends up with a few more carries every game, but in a PPR setting especially, you're going to get a lot more passing down work out of Duke Johnson, and, you know, he's probably going to end up higher. Right now, though, I'm not really high on either one of them because, like I said, they're going to be splitting the work on a team that really is probably more pass-heavy and also has a quarterback who can run the ball, as we saw yesterday with Watson getting into the end zone there on that first drive. I don't think either one of them has big upside. To me, at best, they're both flex back-end RB2 kind of guys throughout the year, with Duke Johnson being the back-end RB2. At best, I think Hyde's more the flex.
If they can stay healthy and play 16 games, I think both are top 30 backs. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, consistency in their production is going to be an issue, but they're not waiver wire fodder. So I would go with that. The Raiders last night, I didn't get to see much of the Raiders and the Broncos, but I feel like what you said about the Broncos yesterday was correct. They can't do nothing. And Cortland Sutton came. I know Cortland Sutton had a good game because your man Pat Doherty from Roto World, he came back and beat my Lamar Jackson team last night. He had a big game from Cortland Sutton and some of the other pieces that went down. Speaking of that, one of those teams from Canton, I got an interest in this stuff I want to talk about with y'all with that team, but didn't see much of it. But I from what I can tell, I see why they really wanted Antonio Brown there, because it looks like John Gruden is putting a little bit of an offense together, Benny.
Yeah, they were pretty good. One thing I've always liked about Derek Carr that I don't think people give him enough credit for, he is a pretty accurate quarterback. And being accurate is usually something that translates into points scored. So I mean, listen, their wide receiver core, especially after they traded Amari Cooper last year, it wasn't even bad. Like it was pitiful.
Yeah.
So, this year they at least got a couple guys that look interesting. I'm not going to say he's an upgrade, but I don't think Waller is a downgrade from Jared Cook. I think he's going to give you basically the same stuff you got there. So that's a positive.
I like Waller. He's a 30% play on waiver wires for me this week, Benny, and in Fab.
Yeah, I mean, if Waller is on the waiver wires, he should probably be picked up. I mean, there are less than a handful of tight ends I think I would rather have than Darren Waller this year. And most of them were probably guys that were drafted in the first 6 rounds. You know what I mean? Like, other than that, the guys that you took chances on at the end of the draft, Waller probably at least deserves to be one of the 2 tight ends on your team if you got, any of those guys that are drafted after, let's say, like Njoku or something.
You'd rather have Waller or Austin Hooper?
I would probably rather have Waller because Austin Hooper has a lot of catch-up side, but he never gets a lot of yards, and they never use him in the end zone.
I agree with you 100% on that one. So just looking at that, like I said, I like Waller. Denver, I didn't really get to see much of Denver, so I can't comment on that. So let's get ready to talk about and see some of this waiver wire stuff. And I want to go to this one specific team, Benny, that I have, because today I get to hit. This is the team. This is the auction from Canton, 14-team classic joint. 0-1. This is the only 0-1 team. This team has Lamar Jackson on it, and Lamar Jackson was in the starting lineup this week. So
and you lost? How did that happen?
No, crazy, right? Well, I tell you how it happened. Because I had Tyreek Hill in my lineup, and I'm now moving him to the injured reserve.
Right.
Tevin Coleman was on my bench, but I'm moving him to the injured reserve.
Yep.
And so I got 3 players on the injured reserve. Now, remember I told you when I read this league's rules, I was like, oh, it has 4 IR spots. Me thinking I would never take up 4 injured reserve spots. Benny, I have 3 of them filled after week 1. You know what I'm saying? So, here's the deal. This is the league right here where I need to add players at, and I want to go through. I haven't taken a look at this. I want to go through and see some of the guys that are on the waiver wire and have a conversation about some of these dudes. Hold on 1 second. Let me go to available free agents. And, okay, wait a minute. On waivers. All right. And it's giving me, okay, let me go by position. Because it's a little bit easier, Benny. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to see the Steelers' defense.
Yeah, no.
Pick them up. DJ Shark's out here. Chris Conley, Hunter Renfrow, some of the wide receivers. Nelson Aguilar, AJ Brown, John Ross, Taylor Gabriel, Andy Isabella, Trey Quinn, Willie Snead. So it's plenty of options out here. Marquise Lee is going to stay there. Just scrolling down. Deion Kane is interesting, Benny. But let's start up here with DJ Chalk and Chris Conley, the duo in Jacksonville. They traded for Josh Dobbs yesterday. I think the Minshew kid did pretty good. I think he's still going to remain the starter with Dobbs being the backup. Yep. Are you worried about the passing game, the wide receivers in Jacksonville because of Gardner Minshew?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, what I think people need to understand is they were down big in that last game. So they basically were – throwing the entire time. So you don't know if they're going to try to lean even more heavily on a guy like Leonard Fournette if they can at this point in time. Because, I mean, basically they got a rookie quarterback back there, right? Making his first couple starts, new to the league, all that good stuff. So I do think it's a lot less of an outlook for these wide receivers than it was when they had Nick Foles back there, who, say what you want. I mean, Nick Foles may not be the best quarterback in the league, but he's definitely not the worst.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so he was a guy that at the very least I thought was an improvement from last year and gave these guys, a little more of a chance. So I do think that that's going to hurt all of the receivers, including D.D. Westbrook, who's a guy that I have on a lot of my teams. Although I think it hurts Westbrook less because usually with young quarterbacks, it's a lot easier to make the throws to the middle of the field. The easiest throws to make are the ones to the guys in the slot. So I think it hurts Westbrook less than it does the 2 outside receivers. The question, though, that because a lot of leagues, both of those guys are on the waiver wire. So I think the real question we should answer here, Corey, is which of those 2 guys would you pick up if it is your waiver situation? Or which one do you put the 15, the bigger bid on, the $2 bid on one and a $1 bid on the other? Which one of those 2 would you rather have?
I would rather have Conley because of the nature of the passing game. Now, listen, now, Foles is not there, but Minshew can get it done too. He's a guy, another player with a big arm. I would take the high upside guy. I would give Conley the slight edge over DJ Chark.
I would give Conley the slight edge too, but it has more to do with the fact that DJ Chark isn't 100%.
Yeah.
He came in with a couple injuries, and if I'm going to take a chance on one of these guys, I'd rather take a chance on the guy who's not the one who has a little bit of an injury and may wind up coming down with it. Because really, I think it's real close between the two of them. Like, I don't see them being more than maybe a touchdown or two, 50 yards, and 5 to 10 catches away from each other by the end of the season.
I would agree with you on that one. John Ross is a dude that I never really roster. Because I know that John Ross has those arthritic knees. I've talked negatively about John Ross, saying that he was like a workout warrior. That 40-yard dash got him, drafted early in the first round. We really haven't seen from him since. This has been his first big game. The team has A.J. Green on it already. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, well, you still get some of that work. I think Dalton could have a big year this year, or at least can be very good at times. I'm warming up to putting John Ross on some teams this week, Benny. What do you think?
I've put a bunch of bids in for John Ross already this week. And here's the thing. I'm not going to go crazy. Like, I'm trying to get John Ross for $5 or $10 and a fab of 100. You know what I mean? He's not a guy that I'm going to look at and say, oh, man, 7 catches over 100 yards, big touchdowns. He's going to do that all year. I do think there's a risk when A.J. Green comes back that his playing time drops.
No doubt.
I do think that there's a risk of injury with this guy. But here's the thing about John Ross is since he's come in the league, Corey, this is the first time he's actually been, quote-unquote, healthy.
Yep.
And, again, the guy was drafted because he runs a sub-4.3 40. So, at the very least, as a field stretcher, you got to look at him as, a poor man's Deshaun Jackson or, John Brown or something like that. That's the kind of role that he's going to play, and that's the kind of guy that he is. And those are guys that are going to have their big games when they catch those long touchdowns, but they might not have big games otherwise. The thing I was surprised about with Ross that you mentioned yesterday is he actually had 7 catches in that game.
He had 7 catches. I would never think I would see a 7-catch stat line from John Ross.
And that's the thing is, can we, without A.J. Green in there, can we reasonably expect him to see 6 to 8 I'm not even going to give him 10 targets, but like if he can see 6 to 8 targets where 1 or 2 of them are shots down the field, and even on his bad games he can still get us 3 or 4 catches for 40 yards, then I think he's at least viable as a bench player and as a flex, especially when we get later in the season and you start having like guys on
5 big issues. Like I said, it's interesting, Benny. As you go to make your bids over the course of the next couple of days, depending on when your waivers run. My thing is, am I ever going to feel comfortable putting John Ross in my lineup? And that's what I worry about right there. Willie Snead, another one that's interesting. And I think Willie Snead probably should have been drafted. Now, hindsight being 2020, he should have been on leagues. Snead can play. He was excellent with Drew Brees at time. These guys had 70 catch seasons before. I think Willie Snead should be owned in 12-team leagues, Benny.
I think he can be owned in 12-team leagues. I mean, listen, here's the reason Willie Snead wasn't drafted is because people were really low on the Baltimore passing game coming into the season, right? Nobody thought that they were going to come out and be able to throw the ball this year. They thought it was going to be a, 10-plus carry for Lamar Jackson every game kind of deal, and they were going to run the ball, 60, 70% of the time at a minimum, and there just wasn't going to be enough volume for any of the pass catchers, let alone multiple pass catchers that he supported in week 1. And then he comes out in week 1 and throws for, 400 yards and 5 touchdowns or whatever the hell they wound up with by the end of that game. I stopped watching. I didn't, it was just, it got that bad. I don't think the passing game is going to look as good as it did in week 1, probably ever again this season, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as people thought. So if you're drafting Willie Snead, again, how often are you really going to use Willie Snead? I mean, if you're rolling him out in a flex spot or if you're rolling him out on bye weeks, I'm okay with it. But I would rather take a chance on some of these upside guys. I'd rather take a John Ross. I'd rather take a, Hollywood Brown if he's available in your league. Even a guy like A.J. Brown from the Titans, somebody who had some big catches last week. I would rather take the upside guys than fool around with a Willie Snead who really is more of a target dependent, PPR kind of play.
No doubt. If Lamar Jackson's on your waiver wire, how much are you spending?
I mean, if I need a quarterback, are we talking like a 10-team league with one quarterback kind of deal?
Talking about a 12-team league with one quarterback. Because there's a lot of common leagues with Lamar Jackson probably went undrafted.
Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, I would have had him as a top 10 quarterback one way or another. So even in a 10-team league, he wouldn't have been on the waiver wire. I think that's crazy. If he's on your waiver wire and you need a quarterback, I would say, see, it's tough because with a one quarterback league, there's always quarterbacks that you can stream and stuff. But he's a guy that you would start every week. Like, you would just go get him and start him every week. So for me, in week 2 of a 16-week season, that's a guy that's worth 40, 50% of your fab at least.
Yeah, at least. I may go as high as 75. Here's the thing, Benny. This is what, trust me, as a person who's had this happen to them on several occasions, and I'm looking at it again this year, I've learned how these things go. The season Michael Vick returned in Philadelphia, I wanted nothing to do with Michael Vick. I thought he wasn't going to be that good. And most drafters agreed with me. And then he started going off. And you know what everybody said? He can't do it again. He can't do it again. And he kept doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Newton's rookie season. He comes out that first game, he goes off. Can't do it again. He did it every single week that year.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had Robert Griffin, RG3. He comes out, has that tremendous first game in New Orleans, and he kept doing it that whole season. Then last year
until he got hurt, and then he's never been the same since.
Same story. Then you had Pat Mahomes do it last year. Benny, we've seen Deshaun Watson his rookie year go through stretches where until he got hurt, he was the top guy. Benny, everybody except for Lamar Jackson should be started over every quarterback not named Patrick Mahomes.
I don't know if I'd go that far, but like I said, to me, I have him as
starting more with Deshaun Watson.
I'm a little worried about Watson's back after yesterday, but no.
Watson's going to get beat up this year.
But if Watson's healthy, no, I don't start him over Watson.
I start him over Watson. I got that situation on the team, he's going into my starting lineup.
Then in that case, you should be looking to spend 70-80% of your fab on him because he's going to be a 15-week starter for you at the quarterback position if you pick him up right now, assuming you make it to your championship. So you know what I'm saying? Like that's what he is. So that's worth a lot. That's worth a lot of your fab. Like I said, to me, minimum 40-50%. If you really, really want him, 70 is probably the way to go because I think you'll have people putting in bids of 2/3 of their fab, which is like $60.
The teams where I got him on the bench. The starters are Watson and Mayfield. He's easily going in over Baker. And I'm seriously – the only thing that would make me not put him in over Deshaun Watson is that's the same team I have DeAndre Hopkins on.
I wouldn't even care. I wouldn't – honestly, to me, I wouldn't even care with that because in DFS, I understand the idea of stacking. In season long –
Hopkins –
I don't really think you have to. I really don't think you have to.
Because if Watson's going off, Hopkins is a likely target anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
touchdowns last night.
And last night he kind of proved it. I mean, everyone. Will Fuller's great, and he's got a lot of talent, and Kenny Stills is nice, and when Kiki Kuti comes back, he's good too. But the volume still goes to Nuke. I mean, he's still the guy that's going to get those targets. And when you saw him and Fuller last year, so Fuller missed the first game of the season, but played from week 2 to week 8. From week 2 to week 8, when he was playing, he had some big games. He caught some long touchdowns. It was nice, but you were still getting double-digit targets for DeAndre Hopkins. Like, DeAndre Hopkins he's a beast. He's a monster.
No doubt. Back to this. Let's talk about some of these running backs on the waiver wire. Raheem Mostert is a guy that I think cats are going to have to pick up, especially with this news with Tevin Coleman's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Mike Davis, Benny, you saw what he did week 1 with Chicago. Catch the football, run the football. You know what I'm saying? What do we think about Mike Davis as a waiver wire addition?
Yeah, I like Mike Davis. I mean, listen, I'm sorry to say it to all the people who have David Montgomery out there. I thought David Montgomery looked like the most talented back. But if they're going to use Tariq Cohen in the slot role like they did last week, and they're going to split carries basically between David Montgomery and give Mike Davis a lot of that passing down work, Mike Davis is probably – as valuable as David Montgomery.
Yeah.
So, when you look at the waiver wire there, the fact that he's getting the passing down work, Montgomery will probably end up with more carries. But the fact that he's getting the passing down work makes him at least as valuable, if not more valuable, than David Montgomery. So I would much rather have Davis than Mostert at this point in time.
Oh, that's interesting. What about Rex Burkhead? I'm not playing the Rex Burkhead game, Benny.
I don't. At best, he's the third best running back on the Patriots, right?
I agree.
And even if Sony Michel, who's the one who's banged up right now, gets hurt, they're probably going to use the rookie kid before they use him as the lead back. So I don't see a path to him ever being more than a guy getting 7 to 10 touches, and even that is not like guaranteed.
No doubt. I agree with that one also. Michael Gallup is a pickup if he's on your waiver wire. I think Michael Gallup, you pick him up, you play him this week. You saw Deshaun Jackson get down the field twice against Washington. Trust me, Michael Gallup is going to get a couple shots to get those same type of plays this week. So I think Gallup is a pickup. What are any other? Am I missing any wide receivers? Any running back?
I was going to ask you a question. If both of the number 2 and the number 3 for Dallas are on the waiver wire, Gallup and Randall Cobb, who do you go with? Because I tell you right now, in a lot of 12-team leagues, both of those guys are on the waiver wire.
That is true. I would prioritize Gallup over Cobb, but Cobb should be on the 12-team leagues also.
Yeah, I really like Randall Cobb. I got to be honest. I put a bunch of bids in for him today already. You think
about his health?
Well, the health, that is the biggest concern. Like that is the one thing that I would say Gallup's probably more likely to stay healthy. Randall Cobb always seems to come down with something. But Cole Beasley carved out a nice career for himself in that slot role in Dallas. And I think Randall Cobb is a more talented player than Cole Beasley. So I'm expecting his numbers to be better than Beasley's. And Beasley's was a guy who was always knocking on the door for, being a guy who should be owned in 10-team and even in 12-team leagues. And speaking of Cole Beasley, what about Cole Beasley? Because he's another guy that went through and wasn't drafted on a lot of rosters.
I would pick up Cole Beasley. The offense is not as explosive. Buffalo just pieces it together. Obviously, John Brown's the main cog out there. But one thing I always say about Cole Beasley, he runs quarterback-friendly routes. He's the perfect player for young quarterbacks. The difference between Beasley and Cobb, Beasley can't get down the field like Cobb can. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But Beasley definitely will give you a 5 for 70. You know what I'm saying? Double-digit points in the PPR. Cole Beasley should be on rosters.
So let me throw some other names out at you. I'm just thinking of guys that I put bids in on, in various leagues last night while I was watching games. Terry McLaurin from Washington Redskins.
Scary Terry is right there behind Michael Gallup.
I would agree with that only because I really trust the Dallas passing game more than I trust the Washington passing game. Yeah. But I think he's somebody that needs to be owned, especially in 12-team leagues. But honestly, even in 10-team leagues as a bench player, I think he's a guy that you could look at. I think he's going to be the best receiver on the Redskins this year.
I agree. What I would watch for is what happens. How much time are you going to have him for until Haskins gets that starting job? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Go with Case Keenum. One thing about Case Keenum is very coachable. If you put Case Keenum in a system, he learns the system. Case Keenum is he can get you where you need to be. I think almost 400 yards in the first week, Benny. He finishes the quarterback 1 this week.
Just think about this, right? Case Keenum was in Minnesota, and everybody was like, oh, well, he just got lucky because he had those good receivers. But he put up big numbers with those good receivers. Case Keenum was in Houston, and people were like, oh, yeah, we had Nuke. He had good receivers. So far, Case Keenum's kind of putting up numbers and making wide receivers, fantasy relevant everywhere he goes. So I think there is a little bit to worry, to kind of worry about that.
Last year, what was wrong with the situation he had last year?
We was in Denver last year, no?
And they stink, you know what I'm saying? And they have no system. When he was in Minnesota, Shermer had a system. Now he's in with Gruden in Washington. Gruden has a system. And if Keenum gets up to speed on that system, Benny, he's good to go. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to win you a Super Bowl, but you know what? You'll be happy watching your team every week because they'll have a shot. What else you got?
New York. Let's talk about the New York Giants here for a second because Sterling Shepard is in concussion protocol.
Yeah.
Tate is still, suspended for another 3 weeks or so. Cody Latimer in deep leagues, 15-team leagues, 12-team leagues with deep benches. Any interest in Cody Latimer?
Yeah, I was looking at that name right there. I don't have much interest in them because of the Giants. Just, you know what I'm saying? They're the Giants. And offense is not really their thing. But that offense is going to be Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley. You know what I'm saying? I think you can get some scraps from Latimer, but he's an add in a 14 and better. In a 12-team league, even if you have 20 roster spots, he would probably get the 20th spot.
Yeah, I think he's more of a cheap flyer for DFS for the next couple of weeks until Golden Tate comes back. As far as like where does he have value in fantasy rather than, somebody who I'm expecting to like produce for the entire season. All right, so Corey, I know nobody wants to talk about this, but they are still going to run 50-something plays a game, and they are still allowed to play football at least for a couple more weeks. There's basically nobody on the Miami Dolphins passing game that's owned right now.
I'm not touching
some spots, Albert Wilson, maybe some spots, Devontae Parker. You're not touching them, though. Preston Wilson, none of them. You don't want anything to do in even in a 15-team league?
I can't rely on dudes that play on a team. That everybody in South Florida in that Miami Dolphins building, they seem like they've quit. You know what I'm saying? And I want to touch on. I'm glad you brought that up. You know what I'm saying? Because this is what's going to happen. They're going to tank. They may go 1-15, 0-16, probably don't win no more than 2 or 3 games.
Right.
They're going to put themselves in position to get to a Tagovailoa from Alabama. And once they secure that draft spot, they're going to fire Brian Flores. And I guarantee you, they didn't tell Brian Flores this was the plan when he came down there and he took that job. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you're going to give him you're going to let him go after he goes 2-14, 1-15 for you, putting that stink on his resume. And I was pissed off about that. You know what I'm saying? And then I thought about it. You know what? That's karma, Brian Flores, because of that big shit that you did to Kenny Stills. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. See, he was capping for Stephen Ross, and at the end of this year, Stephen Ross is going to drop your ass right off with a 1-15 record on your resume.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, he could care less about you either, so it doesn't really make a difference. Yep. I will say this. I think Albert Wilson and Devontae Parker, in 12-team leagues, probably not. In 15-team leagues, you probably want to have these guys because, like I said, listen, that was a horrendous game. You look at the stats, there is nothing you can really walk away with. Although, Devontae Parker did have a couple nice catches down the field, and I would like to see him actually – live up to the hype of what he had when he came into the league.
Yeah.
But again, they're still going to be running 50-something plays a game, and they're going to be playing from behind. So there's going to be opportunity for these guys here, which is why even in a 12-team league, there are guys that I'm looking at that are either injured or that I'm just like, man, why did I draft? What was I thinking at draft time when I took one of these guys as, a late round pick or so that I would drop for Devontae Parker right now?
All right. That's good. I'll keep that in mind, and when I go through the waiver wire, okay, that's nothing important, Benny. Hollywood Brown, very interesting on the waiver wire. Mm-hmm. I worry about the hit or miss games. Mm-hmm. I would put Gallup over him in priority. I would put Gallup. I probably would put Gallup and Cobb over Randall over Hollywood Brown. Would I put John Ross over him? That one is close right there. I probably would put Hollywood Brown over John Ross because Hollywood Brown is banged up too. With the foot, but he got out there and he got it done. What do you think, Benny? Where would you slide Hollywood Brown in as far as the receivers on the waiver wire?
Well, I would still keep Ross ahead of him because you look at the snaps. Ross had way more than the 13 snaps that Brown had. So really, the question I think you want to ask yourself though is Ross going to be a 13 snap guy when AJ Green comes back? Because if that's the case, then they're basically the same guy there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I would agree with you. I would have him behind the 2 guys on Dallas. I'd probably put him behind Terry McLaurin as well because I think McLaurin's going to see a lot more snaps. And that's really what it comes down to, right? It's like my biggest problem with Brown has nothing to do with his talent. It has to do more with the fact that, I again, when you're playing 13 snaps, like think about Eric Ebron last year. the weeks Eric Ebron didn't have a tight end, Eric Ebron killed your fantasy team.
No doubt. If he didn't score, he was a donut.
Yeah.
I get it, Benny, but I'm looking at what they're doing, and they want speed on the field, and they want to take advantage of that speed. And Hollywood has just as much as anybody on the team. Yeah. So it's like you're going to see it. It's like, God damn it, a fucking 70-yard touchdown on my bench. You feel what I'm saying, son? Like, you know what I mean?
But that's the problem is he's one of those guys that'll have the 70-yard touchdown on your bench because he's not consistent enough for you to be like, yeah, he should be in my lineup every week. And again, John Ross is that way. Deshaun Jackson is that way. John Brown is that way. Like, all these guys are of the same type.
Why they're on the waiver wire.
Right, and we've seen it for years, right, Corey? I mean, we've played fantasy long enough to know, like, you know, you always hear that guy, oh, I didn't play this guy. I didn't play this guy on my bench. He was on my bench. He was on my bench. But those are the kind of guys that are on your bench, except for the weeks where you really need them, because they're not consistent. Because as much as they could put up a 25-point week with 2 touchdowns and 120 yards, they also put up a bunch of those 2 catches on 4 targets for 25-yard games, and you get 4 fantasy points out of them. So I think Hollywood Brown is fine as long as you understand. Like, if you're telling me you're playing in a best ball that has fab and you can pick him up, absolutely, because he's a guy that has a ton of upside. You're using him on a DFS GPP roster, fine. But to have him on a season-long team where you have to set a lineup every week, I'm telling you right now, you're going to be pulling your hair out on Saturday night quite a bit, wondering, do you take his upside with the low floor, or do you go with a guy like Willie Snead who doesn't have as high a ceiling, but you know he's going to get 4 or 5 catches every game?
No doubt about it. So that's interesting. And I think Snead, you know what I'm saying, in that case, I still would take the talent of Brown over putting Snead on in the team. It depends on really how your roster is built and what kind of shots you can take with guys like this. And as we talk about those wide receivers, listen, I think we got a pretty savvy group here, you know what I'm saying, with the Elite Mafia and the Goonies, you know what I mean? If Jamison Crowder's on your waiver wire, he goes ahead of all of these dudes, including Michael Gallup and Randall Cobb.
It's not even a question for me. I mean, listen, he's not going to see 17 targets a game, but he's going to see 7, 8, 9, 10 without a doubt. And, I mean, you know, PPR situations especially, the guy's going to have 10, 11, 12 points every week, and that's fine.
I had 29 fantasy points in my roster for Jamison Crowder this week. Yep. So there you go. Get her done. As far as everything else goes, LaShawn McCoy, if Shady's on the wire, yeah, Carlos Hyde also, I would give both those guys a holler, Benny. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, listen, running back is usually a lot thinner than wide receiver, right? Because teams are running out three and four wide receivers that are viable on every team. There's really only like 1, maybe 1.5 running backs per team that are viable. So a lot of those guys, even the backups, are probably on the bench. You know, again, the San Francisco thing, the Tevin Coleman thing was probably one of the biggest major injuries for, you know, a running back this week. If you're in a league where Gio Bernard happens to be on the waiver wire, I mean, he's not in any of my leagues, but if Gio Bernard's on the waiver wire, he would probably be the ad of the week. So in 10-teamers, you might find the Gio Bernard on the waiver wire in a 10-teamer.
Yeah. I got Gio Bernard in the auction league, and he may actually go in my lineup this week. At auction league, the running backs are funny. Marlon Mack came through, he did his thing, but then I had Miles Sanders in my starting lineup, and I had
Tevin Coleman.
Not Tevin Coleman. I don't have Tevin Coleman on this team. Miles Sanders was in the lineup, and it was another running back that didn't do something. Benny, gosh darn it, who was it? And I was kind of upset with him too. But
Aaron Jones?
No, Sony Michel.
Oh yeah. I didn't look because I fell asleep and that game's over. Normally I look at like the box scores afterwards. What was his line in that game? I remember like all 3 running backs having some.
He had 13 carries for 14 yards. It didn't go in for him.
I mean, he got the volume though. 13 carries is not bad. That's kind of what you were expecting out of him.
The thing about it was the snaps. When he was in the game, he touched the football. And it kind of put him behind the 8 ball because when he came in the game,
they knew they were running.
They knew he was going to get the ball. So, you know, I got to be prepared for that. But I do think, you know, going down the stretch, I think Sony will be fine. But they're going to have that New England Patriot offense is going to have a lot of fun when Antonio Brown gets there. So they could forget about running the football altogether, Benny.
Yeah, you know what I mean? The thing we liked about Sony Michel was really the touchdown equity, right? Like that was that was what you expected. With a team that's going to score a lot of touchdowns, he's going to get the equity because you knew they're still going to use James White. And, they've always been a team that's just kind of mixed guys in. And, Burkhead's going to have some carries and stuff like that. It's tough. I mean, it's Sony Michel. I don't want, again, you don't want to overreact after one game, but 14 yards on 13 carries is definitely not positive.
No, that's not, Benny. Right quick, I meant to mention this. Josh Jacobs looked good last night. I could very well have been wrong about him. Another player that I think could be interesting add, Benny, and I just had is Deion Kane. Devin Funchess might be a little bit nicked up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, Devin Funchess is out. They already said he's going to be out for a little while.
There you go, right there.
Yeah.
With Kane, that's a less than 10% bid right there, though. You know what I'm saying? That's
like $1, $2 kind of guy. Yeah,
that's $1 right there. You know what I'm saying? You see what happens. We don't know what Brissett. Came out. He looked well in the first game. He got T.Y. Hilton the ball. Marlon Mack did his thing. I like the fact that the Colts are tight. Like it's Brissett, Hilton, Mack. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize this yesterday. They missed 3 kicks in that game. They should have won the game.
They should have won that. To be honest with you, and this is what we talked about, is the line actually did a pretty good job giving Jacoby Brissett time to throw. Yeah. I think you're going to see better production out of the Colts offense with Jacoby Brissett this time than you did a couple years ago. So, erase those memories of him getting sacked and getting beat up all the time a couple years ago. Because remember, that was the same thing that was happening to Andrew Luck at that point in time. And that's why Andrew Luck is firing at 29 years old right now. Yeah. So, that's definitely something you got to kind of keep in mind and look at over there. Corey, I was surprised to see how many of the leagues I was in, Royce Freeman wasn't owned.
Yeah. Interesting, right? He's in a lot of waiver wires, too. I think he's a good pickup this week.
I think so, too. I mean, basically, they split. I would still rather have Phillip Lindsay, but it's really close. Like, I think they both had, 10 carries last night. Lindsay saw more of the passing down work, so he's still the guy I would prefer. But this looks to me like 50-50, 60-40 kind of split for the year.
No, I was actually kept – the little bit of the game I did watch, I saw that, and I was like, I got to add Royce Freeman to the list. It's not working this morning. Hold on one second. I'll pull up the box score right here. Poor Joe Flacco.
It had to be pretty close in carries. Like, it might have even been even. I do remember Lindsay felt like he was used a lot more in a passing game, though. Like, he had maybe 3 or 4 catches, and I don't even remember if maybe Royce Freeman had 1. I don't remember if he even had a catch.
Royce Freeman had 10 carries for 56 yards. Phil Lindsay had 11 carries for 43 yards.
About the same.
Lindsay also had 4 receptions. Royce Freeman had 1 reception.
Okay.
So there you go right there. No, I think, listen, the Broncos are not good. But
did Devontae Booker have any touches at all?
No, Devontae Booker is forgotten, man, Benny.
All right, so 60-40, basically a 60-40 split because you're looking at 11 touches for Freeman and then 15 touches for Lindsay. So, again, 11 touches on a waiver wire in a 12-team league is probably something that should at the very least be on someone's bench.
There you go right there. So tomorrow when Fab is doing lineups lock, we'll get some more injury information today and get you some more stuff on that front. Benny, looking at some of these, we looked at some of these early lines. There hasn't been much line movement. Philadelphia and Atlanta came in as a pick'em to start, and Philadelphia is now a 1-point favorite. I will be betting on the Falcons in this game. I don't like saying that out loud because the Atlanta Falcons are horrific against the spread. I don't see them starting 0-2, though.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm probably staying away from this game, but
that's a good idea, too.
Yeah. This is one that I don't really have a strong opinion on because I could see either one of these teams winning. I was very impressed with the Eagles in the second half of that game. Mm-hmm. I was very unimpressed with the Eagles in the first half of that game, but maybe that's what they needed to just kind of get going. Again, Atlanta's defense is the thing that really has me worried. It's like the offense, sure, I think the offense can put up points, but can the defense stop anybody? Because it looked like Minnesota just did whatever they wanted in that game last week. And I think that the Eagles offense may be able to do kind of whatever they want here this week. So that scares me a little bit.
Chicago and Denver also opened up as a pick'em. We now have a spread in that one. Chicago is a 1.5-point favorite.
Hammer it.
Huh?
Hammer it. Hammer it. Dude, Denver looked bad last night. Hammer it.
But Chicago ain't look that good either, though, Benny.
But Chicago played a much tougher opponent, in my opinion. You know, I think the Green Bay Packers defense is legit, and I think the Green Bay Packers offense is legit. They shut down a legit offense, and they struggled against a good defense. I don't think Denver's defense, after watching them last night, is as good as everybody's kind of giving them credit. Everyone's like, oh, Fangio's going to make that like the greatest defense in the world. They didn't look all that good last night, getting torn up by an Oakland Raiders offense that doesn't really have a ton of talent.
Understood. I can dig it. I don't know about that one. If I bet it, it would definitely be Chicago because I'm not putting no money on the Broncos. But it might be a left alone for me because I just don't like the way Mitchell Trubisky looked. Kansas City and Oakland opened up at 7.5 in Oakland. I think that's too much for a division game. I would bet the Raiders cover that 7.5.
I will take Kansas City, and I will tease them in just about every teaser I have down to 1.5 as well.
That's a brilliant idea right there.
Yep.
That Pittsburgh,
you cross the 7, and you cross the 3 if you tease them down. So that's a big number. Those are big numbers to cross.
I agree with you on that. The Seahawks and the Steelers, it opened up with the Steelers being a 3-point favorite. It is pushed up to the Steelers being a 4-point favorite.
I think the Steelers are better than we saw. I think the Seahawks are just going to play ugly games all year.
Yeah, the Seahawks are not going to get. I don't think the Seahawks, like people, you're not going to blow them out. Like if you beat them, you're going to beat them by 4.
Yeah, that's the thing that point right there from 3 to 4 in a game like this is kind of a big deal for me. You know, if it was 3, I'd be like, all right, I'm willing to stay on the Pittsburgh side at 3. At 4, though, like I really feel that this game comes down to like Russell Wilson makes a play and they go ahead, and then Ben Roethlisberger makes a play and they go ahead, and it just comes down to who has the ball last with a chance to win it.
The best bet might be the over in that game of 46.5. The 49ers opened up as a 1-point favorite. Now the Bengals have become a 1-point favorite. I like the Bengals in this game.
You know what? When we were trying to, do the whole like picking lines exercise the other day, and I actually said that San Francisco. We actually argued over who would be favored in this game between San Francisco and the Bengals, and I actually thought San Francisco would be favored. You said so the Bengals are favored by 1 right now.
There was San Francisco opened up as the favorite. The money come in and move the Bengals to the favorite.
This is a tough game. Like I'm probably staying away from it because I can see it. To me, this game should be around the pick 'em. So 1 point either way. I don't really want to mess with it. I think both of these teams are middle of the road. So I think that this should be a good game, but I don't really have a lean either way.
The Patriots opened up at 13.5. They've pushed up to 18.5.
I would have taken them at 13.5. I can't take a team at 18.5. I just can't do it. I can't even tease them down to 12. I just can't do it. I can't do it.
I agree with you. The Texans and the Jaguars, the Texans opened up as 8.5. They've pushed up to 9.
So here's the thing I want to see. I want some before you put money on this game, make sure you figure out what's up with Watson. Because you saw him grabbing his back. Yeah, like put it this way, if Watson plays, I'll take the 9. I'm fine with I'll give the 9. You can have the 9 if Watson plays. I have no problem with that. If Watson doesn't play, though, I don't know if I want to take Jacksonville against Houston at 9 points because I feel if Watson doesn't play, you may just see both of these teams go run heavy and this game finish like 21-13 or something like that.
Yeah, I think Watson will get out there. Watson, you know what? Brendan was talking last night, Benny. You know who Watson is starting to remind me of? Steve McNair.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's not a bad comparison. I always liked Steve McNair. Steve McNair was a really good quarterback. And, but you know what? Steve McNair realized, too, later on in his career that he was better off throwing the football than running and trying to do it himself because it kept him healthy. Yeah,
no doubt. You know what I'm saying? And Deshaun Watson, a little bit of this, it's that you come on now, fix that offensive line because this kid is getting killed. You know what I'm saying? Like when even after Will Lutz hit that kick and Watson was walking off the field, people were coming up to him like, "Oh, you all right?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm good." You know what I'm saying? So
that's what I'm saying. You watched that game last night. The entire game, he was adjusting his back. He was, trying to get loose. Yeah. I'm 40 years old and can barely get out of bed some mornings because my back hurts. So I know how he feels, and I'm not getting 300-pound guys dropping on me at, full speed throughout the night. So that's why I said just, make sure he's going to be okay and he's going to be in the game before you bet it. So I probably won't take this game right now. It'll probably be one that I bet closer to the weekend.
No doubt. The Cowboys opened up at 3.5. I saw some 3.5s. I saw some 4s. They're 4.5 now. I wouldn't be surprised that pushes up to 6. And that is the only thing. Yeah, that's been the only movement. And then the next game that we really have on the slate is Thursday night. Week 2 kicks off with the Buccaneers going to Carolina. The Buccaneers are catching 6.5. I would catch that 6.5 with the Buccaneers because I don't think the Panthers are 7 points better than anybody.
I like this as you know what? Here's your teaser for the weekend. Just drop that down to Carolina winning by 0.5 and then go with KC from 7.5 to 1.5. And, thank me on Sunday night when you cash your money.
There you go right there. Big piece of chicken. I'm going to give it to my man Will Lutz coming through, banging out that 58-yarder to win the game. Send the total. Well, the total had already went over as with the Deshaun Jackson touchdown. But I give my big piece of chicken to Will Lutz. 14 fantasy points for Lutz last night.
Yeah, I got to give mine to Deshaun Watson. Watson, what do you have?
Feeling one piece.
Yeah, well, that too. He survived. He got the win. I think he threw for 3 touchdowns. He ran for another one.
They lost.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that. That's right. They lost on the last second. That was bad. That was a good game though, the way it went. But he did everything. Yeah, he did everything he could have done. He did everything he needed to do, leading them to the game winning I shouldn't say the game winning, to get the lead to go ahead in there. So he played very well last night, put up a big fantasy score for me. So big piece of chicken to Deshaun Watson.
All right, for my main man Benny, it's Corey Parson, the fantasy executive, opening line. We are out.